Okay, good morning, everyone. I will go over the solutions for the homework I gave you for 10-7. And then I'm going over it also so that you know how to respond to the practice test and the exam next week on Schoology. So it will be in the form of an assessment, and so you need to know how to respond. So going over this with you, you will know how to respond on the practice test as well as the test for next week. Okay, so let's look at number 45. So 45, we had x squared equals negative 81. So we have to undo squaring, which is square rooting. And so we have x equals plus or minus, always two answers, remember, square root of negative 81. And so this is equal to plus or minus the square root of 81 times the square root of negative 1. And then so this would be plus or minus 9i. So on Schoology, you would just enter plus or minus 9i as your answer. Number 47. Okay, we'll complete the square as the example show us there. Okay, as the example shows. So we have x squared plus 6x. I need to subtract 10 from both sides. So that will give me negative 10. And now we'll complete the square. We'll take that 6 and we'll divide it by 2 and square it. And that's what we add to both sides. So x squared plus 6x. 6 divided by 2 is 3 and 3 squared is 9. So I will add 9. I'm completing the square. And then that will equal, to balance the equation, I have to add 9 to the other side as well. Now the x squared plus 6x plus 9 is a perfect square trinomial whose sides are x plus 3 squared. And that equals negative 1. So now we square root both sides. And then we get x plus 3 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 1 is I. And so this will be x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus I. And again, that's what you will enter as your response on Schoology. Negative 3 plus or minus I. And then number 49 here. So again, I'll complete the square on that. So we have x squared minus 14x. I need to subtract 75 from both sides. So that will be negative 75. And then we'll take that negative 14 and we'll divide that by 2, and then we square it, and that's what we add to both sides. So x squared minus 14x, negative 14 divided by 2 is negative 7, and negative 7 squared is 49. So equals negative 75, and then we add 49 to the other side. X squared minus 14x plus 49 is x minus 7 squared. It's a perfect square trinomial. And negative 75 plus 49 is negative 26. And then we square root both sides. And then we get x minus 7 equals plus or minus the square root of negative 26 equals the square root of 26 times the square root of negative 1. So that would be I root a square root of 26. And then finally we add 7. So 7 plus or minus I, the square root of 26. Now on Schoology, on the practice exam or on your exam, you will enter 7 plus or minus I times square root of 26. Because there's no key for you to enter square root, so that's the way you would enter that. 7 plus or minus I times the square root of 26. Okay, so that was those problems there. Now let's go on to the other problems here. So I gave you yours to use a quadratic formula. So 53, always define what A, B, and C is. So A is equal to 1. B is equal to negative 3, and C is equal to negative 8. So x will equal, this is for 53, so x will equal, so negative 3 plus or minus the square root of negative 3 squared minus 4 times A times c all over 2 times a, which is 1. So this will equal negative 3 is 3 plus or minus the square root. Negative 3 squared is 9, and negative 4 times 1 times negative 8 gives you a positive 32 all over 2. And then we have 3 plus or minus the square root of 41 over 2. Now in Schoology, you would enter in both the numerator and the denominator. So the way you enter the numerator, it would be 3 plus or minus the square root of 41. That would be the numerator that you would enter. So you would enter it like that. And then the denominator, you would just enter 2. Okay, so you'd have 2 answers to do. Okay, 55. So 55. Again, we have a is equal to 2, b equals negative 10, and c equals 18. Okay, so we have x equals, so negative 10 plus or minus negative 10 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 18. Oh boy, this is a big one here. Oh, hey, let me do this. I'm going to make that a lot easier, okay? Because I see right now I can divide everything by 2. Again, I always like these good mistakes, because if I make it, then it's good for you. So if I divide everything by 2, because I can't, this would be x squared minus 5x plus 9. Now, why did I do that? Because this is a lot easier working with smaller numbers than larger numbers. So a equals 1, b equals negative 5, and c is equal to 9. That's a little better. Yeah. All right, so here, so x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 5 squared minus 4 times a times c. See how much easier it is now to work with that? And then all over 2 times 1. So this will be 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus 36 over 2, which will be 5 plus or minus the square root of, what's that, negative 11, right? 11 and 25 is 36, negative 11 all over 2. And so the answer would be 5 plus or minus I root 11 over 2. So again, you'd have 2 answers to do on Schoology to provide. Okay, the numerator and denominator, so you would go 5 plus or minus I times square root of 11. So that would be your numerator. And then the denominator, you would just enter 2. Okay, there you go. So that's the way you enter that on Schoology. And then I gave you number 57. So 57, so a equals 1, b equals negative 5, and c is equal to 10. All right, so let's do that one here. So that was 57. So a equals 1, b equals negative 5, and c equals 10. So x equals negative b, negative 5, plus or minus the square root of b squared, negative 5 squared, minus 4 times 1 times 10, all over 2 times 1. And then we have 5 plus or minus, so that would be 25, minus 40, all over 2, so it would be 5 plus or minus 25 minus 40 would be negative, what's that, negative 15, over 2. This is 57. And then we'd have 5 plus or minus I root 15 over 2. So again, you'd have two things to enter. You'd have the numerator to enter, so that would be 5 plus or minus I times square root of 15. So that would be one thing you'd enter, and then the other thing you would enter is 2. And again, you have to enter 2 because you can't provide a fraction in your response on Schoology for your assessment. All right, so there you go. So that's the way you would enter that. All right. Oh, and I want you to notice here, so students, can we use decimals on the test? Well, guys, to be honest with you, it's not going to help you much. In fact, it won't help you at all because you will not be able to take or find exact answers of imaginary roots. You can't. So, yeah, you can use it. You have it available, but it's not going to help. So, you have to know how to use a quadratic formula or complete the square. Okay? It's just not going to help. All right, so next one here. And so I gave you, what were the other ones I gave you? So you had to find the type and the number of solutions for each. So we had x squared, so 61. So let's look at 61. Oh, big numbers here. So 61, we had x squared minus 246 x equals negative 144. So remember, this has to be in standard form, right? So x squared minus 246 x, and then we have to add 144 to both sides. And I better get up my calculator here. So A equals 1, B equals negative 246, and C equals 144. So remember, the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. So what we have, negative 246. Oh boy, what a big number. Negative 246 squared minus 4 times 1 times 144. Oh, where's my calculator? That's such a big number. All right, so what we get? So if I take 246 and square it, that gives me 6. Ooh, I can never have done that by hand. And then 4 times 144, so minus 576. Well, it's a big number, so 60516 minus 576. And so this would be 59940. So because it's positive, we have two real solutions. We have two real solutions there. Okay? And then 60, I gave you 63, so that was 3x squared minus 5x plus 3. So 3x squared minus 5x plus 3 equals 0. So A equals 3, B equals negative 5, and C equals 3. So the discriminant will be b squared minus 4ac. So we have negative 5 squared minus 4 times 3 times 3, which would be 25. And 9 times 4 is 36, so minus 36, so that would be negative 9. So we'd have non-real solutions. Okay? We'd have two non-real solutions there. Right, and so that's two non-real complex solutions. For 61, we had two real solutions. So two non-real complex. So that's what we would have for that. And then for the other one, we had two real solutions. Two real solutions. Remember, real numbers, rational and irrational. And then complex numbers, we have those imaginary i's. All right, so there. So now you know how to respond on your practice test or how you will respond on your actual test.